Give them a count for lunch. Okay, on your tables, I gave everybody a breakout. Rick loves this one right here. This, if you look at this, this is the flow chart of the Michigan Snowmobile Association. And that's we're gonna go over that at the end here, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of history here first. 1981, there was 3 associations in the state of Michigan. The Michigan Association of Recreational Snowmobilers, they were called MARS. Michigan International Snowmobile Association, they were called MISA. And the Michigan Upper Peninsula Snowmobile Association, they were called MUPSA. Well, in the 1970s and 80s, we all know that there was hundreds of snowmobile manufacturers, and everybody had their own area that they liked to go in, and pretty much all the trails were loop trails, 15 miles, probably 20 miles were the max amount of trails, or we roll out of roads. 1975-74 saw the state of Michigan enact the first snowmobile laws to restrict the uses of snowmobiles on roadways and so on and so forth. And like I said, these associations were formed from clubs and different groups out there wanting to go snowmobiling. In the 80s, snowmobiles actually got to the point where you could go over 20 miles without having to fix it or tow it out of the woods. That was the good news. The bad news was that manufacturers were dropping off one by one. In 1982, we were down to 5. The 4 existing ones now in John Deere. So in 82, there was a move from the manufacturers and from the Department of Natural Resources that said, look, we cannot be dealing with all these different state associations because MUPSA wanted this and MISA wanted this and MARS wanted this. We need to deal with one, so you guys figure it out. So in 1982, there was a group in southern Michigan that started talking about it and actually went out. There were a group from the Southern Michigan Snowmobile Council, actually a break off of that group, and went out and formed the Michigan Snowmobile Association. It was incorporated in June 1982. And that group, core group, was made up of some MARS people and some MISA people and just some plain old snowmobilers. And they went out, and when they formed MSA in June of 1982, they didn't know exactly where they were going to go, so they started working on bylaws. To get those bylaws in, they wanted to make sure that they didn't step on MISA's toes, MUPSA's toes, or MARS' toes. So they pretty much hamstrung the association that nobody was going to have any more power than the other group, because you certainly didn't want snowmobile trails were prevalent in northern lower Michigan and the UP, but yet all the snowmobilers were still down in the lower. So it was still a political hot potato. September of 82, we had 36 members of MSA. In January of 83, MISA and MARS transferred their memberships to the new MSA. Brought the general membership meeting in February of 1983 up to 232 members. 1983, shortly after that first annual meeting, MSA went to the UP and MUPSA joined in to complete the new association. 1983, they had the first full board of directors meeting in Marquette with 16 council areas represented. September of 83, they had a special membership meeting to change the bylaws to create an executive committee to act instead of the board of directors, because when the association was put together, it was put together to be run by the board of directors. And those board of directors are made up of memberships from all the different councils. Well, they were going to try to have a meeting once a month. Well, when you're coming from the Keweenaw or southern lower Michigan and trying to move those meetings around, it was getting quite expensive to try to run the association and get everybody to show up at those meetings. So they enacted the executive committee to act instead of the full board of directors. That executive committee that originally was chosen, there was 9 delegates to represent, 3 from the lower, 3 from the northern lower, and 3 from the upper. And you'll see on this chart here right now, there's 5 people on there because they were amended later to actually create 5 directors from each one of those regions. So, but the whole reasoning again was less travel, better communications, ability to focus on regional issues, and more involvement from the areas. February 25th, 1984, the second annual meeting was held in Cadillac. We're now up to 908 members. And we discussed a new out-of-state user fee. Wow, out-of-state user fee, that's first of its kind. Nobody had ever done anything like that other than Old Forge, New York. They're the only ones who had a user fee in the whole United States. MSA was successful and got the out-of-state user fee enacted. The very first winter it was enacted, it was poorly planned because they were only available at Secretary of State offices, and you had to buy them in books of 25, and if you didn't sell them, then you could get a refund at the end of the season. It was poorly done. Snow everywhere that year. Lower Peninsula, Wisconsin, Illinois, everybody had snow. And of course, at that time then, the other state associations were, quote, boycotting it, Michigan. So, pretty powerful group called UPTRA, Upper Peninsula Tourism Association, thought that the boycott was working and that this was not the way to fund Michigan trails. So they were a pretty powerful lobby. In December of 1984, they saw that user fee rescinded, and Michigan was back into the same pile of where do we get funds from. 85, the Ford manufacturers finally banded together, and they hired a lobbyist in Michigan. They saw all the other states were surpassing Michigan in funding, trails. We were just lingering around. We couldn't get anything done, no money. 1985, they hired a lobbyist, and their lobby effort was actually successful. In 2 years later, in 1987, and they put in the Recreational Improvement Fund, which took 2% of the tax on all gasoline products in Michigan, created the fund. Boaters get 80% of that fund, snowmobilers get 14%, and 6% is used by others. 1989, membership stands at 4,800, and the topic of the day was increased fuel costs. 1991, MSA muttered the words again. This is 91. I think we need an out-of-state user fee. 1993, legislation was introduced to raise the registration fees to $22 to create a grant program. And along with that, we were still continuing to work on an out-of-state user fee. 1994 saw us change the wording from an out-of-state user fee to a trail permit fee where all snowmobilers paid the same. Whether you were from Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, everybody paid the fee. All of a sudden we gained traction, and that law passed. And 1994 was the first year, that winter, 94-95 was the first year that saw a $10 snowmobile trail permit. December 94, we were up to 13,000 members. 95, we saw the fishermen complain, and they wanted out of the trail permit fee because they were just going to their ice shacks. 1995 also saw the first American Council of Snowmobile Associations formed, along with the International Snowmobile Manufacturers Association formed. It was a banner year, a lot of stuff was happening that year. And the Fund for Animals first filed lawsuit in Yellowstone to end snowmobiling in 1995. Membership jumped to 14,000. 96, sled dogs were the talk of the town. Sled dogs on snowmobile trails. 97, membership was 17,000. 97 also saw us put registration numbers on a decal on our sleds instead of the long numbers that went on the side.